the betrayal that never was. The rain pelted against the windshield as Ethan sat in his car, staring at the dimly lit motel entrance. He clenched his jaw, his mind replaying every subtle sign, every whispered phone call, every late-night excuse his wife Lauren had given him. His heart pounded as he gripped the steering wheel. He never wanted to believe it, but the evidence was mounting. Beside him sat Mark, his best friend and the private investigator he had hired. Mark exhaled slowly. "You ready for this?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah, I need to see it with my own eyes." Mark handed him a small voice recorder. "I'll be right behind you. If things go south, we get out. No confrontations." Ethan stepped out of the car, his feet splashing in the puddles as he made his way to room 214. He hesitated, then pressed his ear against the door. Muffled voices. A man's voice. Then laughter. His stomach twisted. He reached for the handle. 3 weeks earlier, it had started with a feeling, a gut-wrenching suspicion that Lauren had become distant. She smiled less, touched him less, spent more time on her phone. Ethan had tried to brush it off, but then there was the late-night text he glimpsed over her shoulder. "Can't wait to see you again." The name was just a letter. D. It was vague, but it was enough to send him spiraling. "You think she's cheating?" Mark asked when Ethan confided in him. "I don't know," Ethan admitted, "but I need to find out." Mark, a former cop turned PI, agreed to help. Over the next few weeks, they gathered evidence, phone records, surveillance footage, financial transactions. Lauren had rented a hotel, roomed twice in 1 month, paid in cash. Always on the nights she said she had work dinners. Back to the motel, Ethan shoved the door open. Inside, Lauren sat on the bed, alone. She gasped, standing abruptly. "Ethan, what the hell are you doing?" "Here?" His eyes darted around the room. No sign of another man. "Where is he?" "Where is who?" Lauren's voice was thick with confusion. Ethan's heart pounded. "Don't lie to me. I saw the texts, the hotel records. I know you've been meeting someone." Lauren's expression softened into something almost amused. "Oh my God, Ethan, you think I'm having an affair?" Mark entered, eyeing the situation carefully. "Ethan, let's take a breath." "No," Ethan snapped. "I want the truth." Lauren exhaled. "You deserve the truth. But it's not what you think." She hesitated, then gestured for Ethan to sit. He refused, standing rigidly. "Fine," she said. "I've been meeting with a private doctor. For you." Ethan froze. "What?" Lauren bit her lip. "You've been forgetting things. You repeat yourself. You get lost in your thoughts. I was scared. I didn't want to worry you, so I was meeting with Dr. Daniel Turner. I was trying to figure out what was wrong before. Telling you." His mind reeled. "That's ridiculous. Last week," Lauren interrupted, "you asked me how my sister was doing. She died 3 years ago, Ethan. You asked me twice." His head spun. No, that's not." Lauren's eyes glistened. "You remember how your father had early onset Alzheimer's? The doctor thinks it might be happening to you." Everything blurred. The paranoia, the obsession with Lauren's movements, the forgotten details. Had he really been losing himself? "I wanted to tell you when I had proof," Lauren whispered. "Not like this." Ethan felt the walls closing in. No, this isn't right. None of this is right. I was here before. We fought before. I know this already." The room flickered. The walls wavered like a mirage. Ethan shot up in bed, gasping. His hands clutched the sheets, drenched in sweat. His breath came in ragged bursts. He turned his head. Lauren lay beside him, sleeping peacefully. A dream. But it had felt so real. He swung his legs over the bed, gripping his forehead. The paranoia, the investigation, the motel confrontation. It had all been a dream, except his hands trembled as a sick feeling crept up his spine. He turned to the nightstand, grabbing his phone. He scrolled through Lauren's recent messages. Then he saw it. A text sent just minutes ago. Can't wait to see you again. D. His heart stopped. The dream had never been a dream. It was a warning. Ethan's fingers hovered over the screen, his pulse hammering in his ears. He glanced at Lauren, still asleep, oblivious to the storm raging inside him. His mind spun. Had it really been a dream? Or was it something more? He needed answers. Slowly, he got out of bed, careful not to wake her. He padded out of the bedroom, gripping his phone like a lifeline. He scrolled through her messages, searching for more. Nothing else seemed out of place. No calls, no other suspicious texts. But that single message from D was enough. Ethan's paranoia from the dream hadn't been unfounded. The evidence was real. Mark. He needed to call Mark. With trembling hands, he dialed his friend's number. After a few rings, a groggy voice answered. "Ethan? It's Jesus, it's 3 a.m. What's going on?" "I saw it, Mark," Ethan whispered. "I thought it was a dream, but it's real. Lauren's cheating." Silence. Then a sigh. "Ethan, man, are you sure?" "I need proof," Ethan said. "Meet me in an hour." Mark hesitated, but finally relented. "All right. But if we go down this road, we have to be sure." Ethan clenched his jaw. "Oh, I'm sure." Ethan shot up in bed, gasping. His hands clutched the sheets, drenched in sweat. His breath came in ragged bursts. He turned his head. Lauren lay beside him, sleeping peacefully. A dream, but it had felt so real. He swung his legs over the bed, gripping. His forehead, the paranoia, the investigation, the motel confrontation. It had all been a dream. Except. His hands trembled as a sick feeling crept up his spine. He turned to the nightstand, grabbing his phone. He scrolled through Lauren's recent messages. Then he saw it. A text, sent just minutes ago. "Can't wait to see you again." D. His heart stopped. The dream had never been a dream. It was a warning. The investigation begins. Again, Ethan sat in the dim glow of his laptop screen, his pulse hammering in his ears. He hadn't gone back to sleep. Instead, he pored over Lauren's phone records, bank statements, anything that might prove the dream was more than just a nightmare. A name popped up again and again. Dr. Daniel Turner. Ethan exhaled sharply. The same name from the dream. His fingers hovered over his phone, then he dialed Mark. "Ethan, what's wrong?" Mark's groggy voice answered. "I need you to look into someone for me," Ethan whispered, staring at the text message on the screen. "A doctor named Daniel Turner." A long pause. Then Mark's voice sharpened. "Ethan, Daniel Turner's been dead for 5 years. Ethan's..." Blood ran cold. "No, that's not possible." "I remember the case," Mark said. "He was a neurologist, accused of medical fraud. He faked diagnoses to get people into expensive treatments. When the investigation closed in, he disappeared. His body was found a year later, drowned. Official cause, suicide." Ethan felt a chill creep up his spine. "Then who the hell is texting my wife?" Silence. Then Mark sighed. "I think we just found your real answer. Meet me in an hour. We're getting to the bottom of this." Ethan clenched his fists. The dream had been a warning, and now he was wide awake. Ethan stared at the text, his breath uneven. A notification popped up. Another message. "Tomorrow. Same place. Midnight." He glanced at Lauren. She stirred slightly but didn't wake. Was his mind playing tricks on him? Or had the dream been more than just his subconscious? What if somehow it had given him a glimpse into something he wasn't supposed to know yet? He swallowed hard and typed a response. "Who is this?" The dots appeared. Someone was typing. Then the reply came. You already know, Ethan. A chill ran through him. He clenched his fists, forcing himself to think. He had to approach this carefully. He got out of bed as quietly as possible, grabbed his coat, and slipped out the door. If his dream had led him to the truth, then he had no choice but to see it through. And this time, he wouldn't wake up before getting answers. Next chapter. Ethan sat frozen, staring at the message. His pulse thundered in his ears as he glanced at Lauren's sleeping form. Every fiber of his being screamed that something wasn't right. His dream had been vivid, too vivid, as if his subconscious was trying to tell him something. He hesitated for only a second before slipping out of bed, careful not to wake her. He grabbed his phone and stepped out into the hallway, his fingers shaking as he dialed Mark's number. The line rang twice before a groggy voice answered. "Ethan, what the hell, man? It's Mark, I need you to check something for me, right now." A pause. Then, "What's going on?" Ethan exhaled sharply. "That text message, it's real. I just saw it on her phone." Mark was silent for a beat, then cursed under his breath. "You sure?" "Positive." Another pause. Then, "All right, send me the number. I'll dig in." Ethan sent the screenshot and waited, his heartbeat erratic as he paced the dark hallway. Minutes ticked by before Mark finally called back. "Ethan," Mark said, his voice now fully alert. "This number, it's registered to a Daniel Turner. The same name Lauren said belonged to the doctor." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. "But what if he's not a doctor?" A cold silence stretched between them before Mark spoke again. "Then we just uncovered something bigger than an affair." Ethan felt his stomach churn. His dream wasn't just a warning, it was a clue, and now he had to figure out what the hell was really going on before it was too late. Ethan's mind raced as he stared at the message. Was it just another coincidence? Or had his subconscious picked up on something he had refused to acknowledge? His pulse pounded in his ears as he carefully placed the phone back where it was. He needed to be sure. He couldn't afford another misunderstanding, not if it meant losing his sanity or his marriage. The next day, Ethan left for work as usual, but instead of heading to the office, he took a detour. Mark was already waiting at the cafe they had met at weeks before. "You look like hell," Mark muttered as Ethan sat down. Ethan slid his phone across the table. "She's still talking to him." Mark's eyes darkened as he read the message. "That's not good. I need you to follow her again. I need to know for sure." Mark sighed, rubbing his temple. "Ethan, are you sure you want to do this? If you're wrong—" "If I'm wrong, then I'll apologize," Ethan interrupted. "But if I'm right, I need to see it with my own eyes." Mark nodded. "All right, I'll tell her." That night, Ethan waited anxiously at home, pretending everything was normal. Lauren smiled at him over dinner, acting as though nothing had changed. But Ethan knew better. Hours later, his phone buzzed. Mark had sent a photo. Lauren, standing outside a hotel, with a man. His face wasn't clear, but the truth was undeniable. She was cheating. Again. And this time, there was no waking up from it. Next chapter. Revenge for betrayal. Ethan's world shattered in an instant. He stared at the glowing screen of his phone, his mind racing. If the dream had been a premonition, if his subconscious had pieced together what his waking mind refused to see, then Lauren was truly cheating. And she had no idea that he now knew. A slow, simmering rage replaced his initial shock. He had spent years devoted to this marriage, trusting her, loving her, and she had thrown it all away. No, he wouldn't be the fool anymore. This time, he would turn the tables. He sent a quick message to Mark. "I need your help again, but this time, I want to destroy her." Mark's reply came instantly. "Tell me where and when." Ethan smirked. He would gather evidence, real, undeniable proof. He would expose her. He would strip away everything she valued. And when she finally realized the depth of her betrayal, she would understand the price of her choices. This wasn't just about catching her in the act anymore. It was about revenge. The investigation resumes. Ethan sat in his car outside their house, gripping his phone so tightly his knuckles turned white. He wasn't going to let this go. He needed the truth. The next morning he called Mark. "I need you again. This time, we do it right. No more dreams, no more doubts. I need proof," Mark sighed. "All right, let's start over. This time we don't just follow her. We find out who Dee really is." Over the next week, Mark tracked Lauren's movements while Ethan played the oblivious husband. The patterns were subtle but clear. Late nights, secretive, phone calls, and unexplained expenses. Then a breakthrough. Mark sent Ethan a photo. Lauren standing outside a cafe. Across from her sat a man. Tall, well-dressed, familiar. Ethan's stomach dropped. It was Daniel Turner, the doctor she had claimed was treating him. Ethan clenched his fists. The betrayal ran deeper than he had imagined. Now he was ready. No more doubts. It was time for revenge.